In recent weeks, a new narrative has been pushed by the establishment and its media servants. Biden may be somewhat senile and sometimes confused, but he's nevertheless a fundamentally decent person. A kindly, if doddery, old man, occasionally out of his depth and not up to the rigors of the presidency, but still presidential. Compassionate. Yes, he may stumble in his speech, but he's still a leader America can be proud of. Not like the last guy. But it's all just an illusion. Real-world events and Biden's response have demonstrated that he is not kind or decent or compassionate. There was no empathetic, down-to-earth, blue-collar guy patiently plugging away for the folks he incessantly evokes. The man sold as the straightforward, warm-hearted, humble unifier turned out to be a cruel, heartless, mean-spirited, dishonest, divisive narcissist. And because we were sold a fantasy, we're now experiencing calamity. In the middle of a health crisis, they want to fire nurses. In the middle of a crime wave created by their own defund the police extremism, they want to fire the very people who keep us safe. And they don't just want to fire them, they want to do it with sadomasochistic relish. Watch.
Should police officers, emergency responders, be mandated to get vaccines? And if not, should they be stay at home or let go?
Yes and yes.
Yes, fire them all. How is that kind? How is that empathetic? There's not even any science-based or public health justification for it. Last week, we told you how YouTube censored my podcast, calling it medical misinformation. Here was the Prime Minister of the UK on Friday making the exact same point. Quote, "The double vaccination provides a lot of protection against serious illness and death, but it doesn't protect you against catching the disease, and it doesn't protect you against passing it on. So now's the time to get your booster." There's no justification for the vaccine mandates, yet Biden's doing it anyway. And he wants people who have dedicated their lives to serving the public fired right before Christmas. He was told his rushed retreat from Afghanistan would put lives at risk, but he did that anyway, to feed his own vanity so he could make some sick, twisted speech on 9/11 of all days about how he ended the war. Well, he didn't end the war. He started a new one as Afghanistan again becomes a terrorist haven. And in the process, 13 American soldiers and hundreds of civilians were killed. And what was the reaction from Mr. Empathy when asked about young men so desperate to escape Biden's disaster that they fell to their deaths from our American planes?
We've seen those hundreds of people packed into a C-17. We've seen Afghans falling.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
Empathy. Biden's got a heart of stone. He thinks people who don't obey his orders on the vaccine are clogging up the hospitals. What, so now, according to Biden, you don't deserve health care if your own choices contribute to your need? This isn't compassion, it is vicious cruelty. Are we going to tell smokers they'll no longer get treatment for lung cancer? If you're overweight and don't exercise and then get heart disease, tough luck, you're on your own. How would Biden's callousness play out in his own family? Why should his own sleazy, feckless, corrupt son get treatment for his crack addiction and its consequences? It was all self-inflicted. How can anyone even use the word empathy in the same breath as this appalling Biden regime that thinks inflation is a high-class problem, with Jen Psaki, who has to be one of the most condescending, out-of-touch, dishonest, arrogant press secretaries ever, mocking the fact that working Americans and their families can't find the basics of a normal life at an affordable price thanks to the Democrats' incontinent spending and war on energy. And Biden can't even get the basics of being president right. Have you ever heard a president of the United States of America make a more anti-American statement than this?
Freedom. I have the freedom to kill you with my COVID. No, I mean, come on. Freedom.
Apart from the fact that, unlike the British Prime Minister, as we just showed you, Biden obviously doesn't understand how the vaccines work and that vaccinated people can transmit the virus. But I'm sorry, for a US president to mock the idea of freedom, if you roll your eyes at freedom, you're rolling your eyes at America, and no one who does that is fit to be president of the local school board, let alone the United States. Speaking of school boards, remember this?
We must end this uncivil war that pits red against blue, rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal.
Didn't take long to go from that to branding parents who disagree with his anti-science corona law and his party's racist, woke indoctrination as domestic terrorists. How is that ending the uncivil war? Using the FBI to threaten and intimidate your political opponents? How are Biden's vaccine mandates bringing the country together? The man who started vaccine hesitancy in the first place by raising questions about how quickly Trump got them done, now he's branding unvaccinated Americans as enemies of the state. There was absolutely no need to politicize the vaccines, but Biden did it anyway. And how quickly and comfortably he slips into lying about the virus, the vaccines, and everything else. Just watch this.
You're actually talking about having National Guardsmen and women driving trucks?
The answer is yes, if we can't increase the number of truckers, which we're in the process of doing.
But it was still during the town hall. The president was still on stage speaking, and the White House reached out to say, actually, we're not actively pursuing this idea.
Biden just makes stuff up. The guy who was supposed to be the antidote to Trump's lies. In that same event on CNN, he lied about how many vaccine doses he inherited from Trump. He lied about going to the border. He lied about tax rates. The next day, he lied about voting reforms, again, to deliberately divide us. His own military advisors confirmed to Congress that Biden lied about what they told him on Afghanistan. Biden is a pathological liar. That is obvious. So what is this presidency, actually? It is the direct opposite of everything we were told it was going to be. Instead of truth, Biden brought lies. Instead of compassion, he brought cruelty. Instead of unity, he brought division. And honestly, we could probably cope with all that if it wasn't for the biggest fraud of all, that Biden, with all his experience, that his team, with all their Washington insider establishment expertise, would bring us competence and good governance, the adults back in charge. Remember all that vain, self-regarding, pompous claptrap? Well, now look where we are. Chaos and incompetence on every single front. Chaos at the border, chaos in the economy, chaos in Afghanistan, on China, OPEC, energy, you name it. Biden screwed it up. Here's the truest moment from that CNN town hall.
What am I doing here?
Good question. If anyone knows the answer, do please tell us.
Holy smokes, that was Steve Hilton just with a barn burner there. I'm from the Midwest. I call it a barn burner. What a beautiful takedown. It's such an interesting angle that Joe Biden is being sold as this decent, fundamentally good, kind-hearted old grandpa doddering around. He just has nothing bad about him. It's the reverse is absolutely opposite. Joe Biden is a soulless, carnal individual who is just a monster to work for. You see this in so many different forms, but certainly in the sense that Joe Biden hates this country and honestly hates you, the working class. His administration is the worst thing to happen to hardworking, normal Americans in my lifetime. That is unequivocal, and the data backs it up. That's why we're seeing the lowest polling numbers in history for Joe Biden as of today. It's just devastating. Good on Steve Hilton for finding a very interesting angle there. That is the biggest lie, that Joe Biden is the decent person and that he actually cares about you. It's untrue. And it's time for us to be awake and to do something about it. And what we do about it is vote. We take away Joe Biden's institutional power in order to hurt you, in order to hurt our lives. And we put in a check and a balance, as our founders had established, to make sure that he can no longer do that. Get out and vote. Get excited. Run for office. Let's go.